The wooden pew felt like ice beneath my knees, even through my wool coat. I'd chosen this spot deliberately, the same bench where Roman and I had knelt 20 years ago, my hand trembling in his as Father Mikhailov blessed our union. Now, on Christmas Eve, I knelt alone. The Church of St. Nicholas hadn't changed. The same icons gazed down from smoke-darkened walls, their golden halos catching the flicker of hundreds of candles. The scent of incense wrapped around me like a familiar embrace, bringing back memories I'd spent a decade trying to bury. My fingers traced the worn edge of the pew, finding the small groove we'd carved with our initials that wedding day when no one was looking. R+A forever. Forever had lasted exactly 10 years. I closed my eyes, focusing on Father Mikhailov's voice as he led the congregation through the liturgy. This was why I'd come. For peace, for the music, for the rituals that asked nothing of me except presence. Teaching music at the elementary school kept me busy most days, but Christmas Eve belonged to this quiet communion with something larger than my small life. The heavy doors at the back of the church creaked open, letting in a gust of winter air that made the candles dance. I didn't turn. Late arrivals were common on Christmas Eve, people who came once a year out of obligation or nostalgia. The footsteps that echoed down the stone aisle were measured, unhurried. Then they stopped. I felt it before I understood it, that electric awareness of being watched. The hair on the back of my neck prickled. Slowly, against every instinct telling me not to look, I turned my head. Roman stood 3 pews behind me, frozen mid-step, as if he'd walked into an invisible wall. 10 years. 10 years since I'd last seen him, since he'd told me with cold, flat eyes that he didn't love me anymore, that he never had, that our marriage had been a mistake from the beginning. 10 years since I'd signed divorce papers with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, my 2-month pregnancy still a secret I'd decided to keep when he walked out the door. He looked older. Not just the silver threading through his dark hair or the deeper lines around his eyes, but something in the way he carried himself. A weariness that hadn't been there before. He wore an expensive black coat over a dark suit, but his tie was loosened, the top button of his white shirt undone. His steel-gray eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. I turned back to face the altar, my heart hammering against my ribs. Don't panic. Don't run. He's just another person in church on Christmas Eve. But my hands clenched together so tightly my knuckles went white. Father Mikhailov's voice continued, reading the Christmas gospel in his deep, resonant tones. I forced myself to focus on the familiar words, on the story of Mary and Joseph and the birth in a stable, a story about unexpected arrivals and impossible circumstances. How fitting. I heard Roman move again, his footsteps continuing down the aisle. I kept my eyes fixed straight ahead, not allowing myself to track his progress. Maybe he'd take a seat far from me. Maybe he hadn't even recognized me in the dim candlelight. The pew beside me creaked as someone sat down. My entire body went rigid. I could feel the warmth of him, smell the scent of his cologne. Different from what he'd worn during our marriage. More subtle, expensive. We sat in silence, both staring at the altar as Father Mikhailov raised the chalice. Alisa. My name on his lips after all these years sent a shiver through me. His voice was lower than I remembered, rougher, as though he'd spent the decade shouting or staying silent. I didn't respond. Couldn't. My throat had closed around any words I might have formed. I didn't know you still came here. He continued quietly, his voice barely audible beneath the priest's intonations. Still came here. As if I'd been the one who left. As if he had any right to assumptions about my life. I found my voice, kept it level and cold. This is my home, Roman. I never left. Unlike you. The words hung unspoken between us. He was silent for a long moment. I could feel him looking at me, studying my profile. I kept my gaze forward, grateful for the years I'd spent teaching rowdy children how to read music. I'd learned to maintain composure under any circumstance. "You look well," he said finally. The absurdity of small talk in this moment, in this place, made something bitter rise in my throat. "So do you. Now please, I'd like to pray." I felt rather than saw him flinch at the dismissal. Good. He deserved worse than that for what he'd done, for the way he'd shattered our life together with such casual cruelty. "I don't love you anymore, Elisa. I never did. You should have someone who can love you properly." The memory of those words still had the power to make my chest ache. Father Mikhailov called the congregation to stand for the final blessing. I rose, Roman rising beside me like a shadow I couldn't shake. The church filled with voices as everyone recited the prayer together, but I barely heard them over the roaring in my ears. This couldn't be happening. Not tonight. Not on Christmas Eve, when I'd promised Polina I'd be home with hot cocoa and her favorite gingerbread cookies. Not when I'd finally found peace in my small life. The service ended. People began filing out, greeting friends, embracing family. I remained rooted in place, torn between the desperate urge to flee and the strange paralysis that had overtaken my limbs. "Elisa, please." Roman's hand hovered near my elbow but didn't touch. "Can we talk? Just for a moment." I turned to face him fully for the first time. Up close, the changes were more pronounced. There were scars I didn't remember, a thin white line along his jaw, another disappearing into his hairline. His eyes held shadows that hadn't been there before, a haunted quality that made him look less like the confident man I'd married, and more like someone who'd seen things he wished he could forget. "There's nothing to talk about," I said, proud of how steady my voice remained. "That was all settled 10 years ago." "I know." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart twist. "I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but please, just 5 minutes." Around us, the church was emptying. Soon we'd be alone except for Father Mikhailov, who was tidying the altar with practiced efficiency. I should say no. Should walk away with my dignity intact, my secrets safe. But something in his expression stopped me. Not the shadows or the scars, but something else. A desperation that looked like it had been building for years. 5 minutes, I agreed quietly. Not here. Outside. He nodded, relief washing over his face so openly it startled me. When had Roman ever been so easy to read? I gathered my purse and coat, moving past him toward the door. He followed at a respectful distance, not trying to help me with my coat or touch me in any way. Good. I didn't think I could handle his touch right now, not with my emotions so close to the surface. The December night was bitter cold, stars sharp as glass in the clear sky. Snow from the previous day still lined the church steps, packed down by countless feet. I moved to the side, away from the departing families calling Christmas greetings to each other. Roman stood before me, his breath forming clouds in the freezing air. For a moment, neither of us spoke. "Why are you here?" I asked finally. "In town, I mean. You swore you'd never come back." I lied. The simple admission hung between us. I've lied about many things, Elisa. Something in his tone made me study him more carefully. This wasn't the Roman I'd known. That man had been all confidence and control, never admitting weakness or fault. This version looked like he'd been broken and badly reassembled. Then why now? I wrapped my arms around myself against the cold. Why come back after all this time? He looked away, toward the small town square where a Christmas tree blazed with lights. Because it's safe now. Because I can finally tell you the truth. The truth? I laughed, the sound harsh in the quiet night. You told me the truth 10 years ago, Roman. You didn't love me. Our marriage was a mistake. You needed to be free. I remember every word. Those were the lies. He turned back to me, and in his eyes I saw something that looked like anguish. Every single word was a lie. I took a step back, my heart suddenly racing. What? I loved you. His voice was rough, raw. God help me. I loved you more than anything in this world. That's why I had to leave. The words made no sense. I shook my head, confused and angry. You can't just... There were people after me, he interrupted, the words coming faster now, as if he'd held them back too long. Rivals. They found out about you, Elisa. They threatened to hurt you, to kill you, to make me watch. The only way to keep you safe was to make them believe you meant nothing to me. I stared at him, trying to process what he was saying. So you broke my heart to save my life. Is that what you're claiming? Yes. No hesitation. I made you hate me so they would leave you alone, and it worked. 5 years ago, I eliminated every threat. But by then... He broke off, his jaw tightening. By then I thought you'd moved on, found someone who deserved you. I had no right to come back into your life. Then why are you here now? I demanded, something hot and dangerous rising in my chest. Because I'm weak. The admission seemed to cost him. Because I've spent a decade living with the memory of your face when I told you I didn't love you, and I can't bear it anymore. Because I needed to tell you the truth, even if you hate me for it. The hot, dangerous thing in my chest exploded. You don't get to do this. You don't get to walk back into my life on Christmas Eve and ask for absolution. You destroyed me, Roman. You made me believe I wasn't worth loving. I know. His voice cracked. I know, and I'll never forgive myself for that. But you needed to know the truth. You deserved to know. I looked at this man I'd once loved with my whole heart, this stranger wearing Roman's face, and felt something shift inside me. Anger, yes, but also a terrible, treacherous understanding of what he'd sacrificed, and beneath it all, a secret that had been eating at me for 9 years. You want the truth? The words came out before I could stop them. Fine, here's mine. You have a daughter. The color drained from Roman's face. He swayed slightly, as if I'd physically struck him. Her name is Polina, I continued, my voice shaking now. She's 9 years old. I was 2 months pregnant when you left, but I never told you because you'd made it very clear you wanted nothing to do with me. A daughter. He breathed the words. I have a daughter. I have a daughter, I corrected sharply. You gave up any claim to her when you walked away. He looked at me with such raw pain that for a moment I almost regretted telling him. Almost. What does she look like? His voice was barely audible. Despite everything, despite the anger and hurt, I found myself answering. She has your eyes, your stubborn chin, but she plays piano like I do, and she laughs at terrible jokes, and she's the best thing that ever happened to me. Elisa, He stopped, seemed to struggle with himself. I don't have the right to ask. I know that. But would you let me meet her? Just once? Every protective instinct I had screamed at me to say no. To take this secret I'd kept for nearly a decade and continue keeping it. To protect Polina from the pain of knowing her father had abandoned her before she was even born. But I thought of my daughter's questions about her father. Questions I'd deflected with vague answers about how sometimes people couldn't be together. I thought of the way she studied my face when I said these things, as if she could sense the lies beneath my carefully chosen words. I need time, I said finally. It's not just about you and me anymore. Polina deserves better than having her world turned upside down on Christmas Eve. Roman nodded quickly. Of course. Whatever you need. I'm staying at the old inn on Maple Street. Whenever you're ready, if you're ever ready. I'll think about it, I interrupted. That's all I can promise. That's more than I deserve. He pulled a card from his pocket, held it out. My number. Call anytime, day or night. I took the card without looking at it, slipped it into my coat pocket. I should go. Polina will be waiting. Polina, he repeated softly, as if testing the name on his tongue. It's beautiful. I turned away before he could see the tears threatening to spill. Merry Christmas, Roman. Merry Christmas, Elisa. I walked away from him, from the church, from the truth that had waited 10 years to surface. Behind me, I heard him call out one more time. I never stopped loving you. Not for a single day. I didn't turn around. Couldn't. Instead, I kept walking through the snow toward home, toward my daughter, toward a future that had suddenly become infinitely more complicated than it had been an hour ago. The walk home from St. Nicholas took 15 minutes, but my mind raced through a decade's worth of decisions in that short span. My boots crunched through packed snow on sidewalks lined with Christmas lights, past houses where families gathered in warm-lit windows. Normal families, uncomplicated families. I'd built a good life for Polina and me. Small, yes. Modest, certainly. But honest. Safe. The 2-bedroom apartment above the music store where I taught piano was filled with books and instruments and the kind of gentle chaos that came from raising a creative child. We had routines. Saturday morning pancakes, Sunday afternoon walks in the park, Monday evening movie nights with popcorn on the couch. Now Roman was back, carrying truths that rewrote our entire history. I loved you more than anything in this world. That's why I had to leave. I'd spent 10 years believing I'd been a fool to trust him, to love him, to think our marriage meant something. I'd rebuilt myself around that narrative, the woman who'd been deceived, who'd learned her lesson, who would never be that naive again. Now he was telling me the foundation of that story was false. The apartment was dark when I arrived except for the glow of the Christmas tree lights Polina and I had strung last week. I hung my coat carefully, composing my face before calling out. Polina, I'm home, sweetheart. In here. Her voice came from the living room. I found her curled on the couch with a book, her dark hair, so like Roman's, falling across her face. She looked up with those gray eyes that were his exact shade, and my heart clenched. How had I never noticed how much of him she carried? How was church? She marked her place with a finger, studying me with the too perceptive gaze she'd inherited from both of us. Beautiful. Father Mikhailov read the Christmas gospel. I sat beside her, forcing normalcy into my voice. What are you reading? The same book as yesterday. She grinned. The princess just discovered the dragon is actually the prince who's been cursed. Of course she was. My daughter had always loved stories about hidden identities and unexpected revelations. The universe had a cruel sense of irony. Hungry? I promised hot cocoa and cookies. Can we make the cocoa together? She closed her book, uncurling from the couch with the easy grace of childhood. You look sad, Mama. Making cocoa together always helps. I blinked back sudden tears. 9 years old, and she could read me better than anyone. That sounds perfect. In the kitchen, we fell into our familiar rhythm. Polina measured milk while I melted chocolate, our movements synchronized from years of cooking side by side. She chattered about her book, about her friend Anya's new kitten, about the Christmas pageant at school next week. Normal. This was normal. I couldn't let Roman's return destroy this. Mama? Polina's voice cut through my thoughts. Who was that man at church? My hand froze on the whisk. What man, sweetheart? The one who sat next to you. You looked scared when he came in. She tilted her head, those gray eyes too knowing. Anya's mama says people only look that way when they see ghosts. I set down the whisk carefully, buying time. How much had she seen? I'd thought she was with Tatiana's family at the back of the church, not watching me. An old friend, I said finally. Someone I hadn't seen in a very long time. A good friend or a bad friend? The question was so simple, so direct. Polina had always been like this, cutting through complexity to reach the heart of things. I'm not sure anymore, I admitted, which was perhaps the most honest answer I could give. She nodded thoughtfully, stirring the cocoa. Sometimes people can be both. My teacher, Mrs. Volkova, is really strict, which seems bad, but she's also the best teacher because she makes us learn things properly. I pulled her into a hug, breathing in the scent of her shampoo. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just notice it more when I say things you need to hear. She hugged me back, then pulled away with a grin. Can we have extra marshmallows tonight? It's Christmas Eve. We settled on the couch with our cocoa. Polina curled against my side while I pretended to watch the Christmas movie she'd chosen. In reality, my mind was miles away, circling around Roman's revelation and the impossible decision it demanded. He'd sacrificed our marriage to keep me safe. He'd made me hate him, had endured that hatred for a decade, all to protect me from threats I'd never known existed. It was noble, selfless, infuriating, and completely devastating to the life I'd built on the ruins of our relationship. After Polina fell asleep, she always did during Christmas movies, no matter how exciting, I carried her to bed, tucked her in, kissed her forehead. Then I retrieved Roman's card from my coat pocket. Plain white cardstock. A phone number in simple black print. Nothing else. No business name. No address. Just a way to reach him. I sat at the kitchen table, turning the card over and over in my fingers. What would happen if I called? If I let him meet Polina? She'd want to know who he was. I couldn't introduce her to a stranger and expect her not to ask questions. And what would I tell her? This is your father, the one you've asked about for years, the one I've deflected questions about, because I didn't want to explain that he told me he never loved me and walked away before you were born. Except now, he says that was all a lie to protect us from dangerous people. And I don't know what to believe anymore. My phone buzzed, making me jump. A text from Tatiana. Saw you talking to someone after church. You okay? Tatiana, my best friend since childhood, who'd held me while I cried through those first terrible months after Roman left, who'd been there when Polina was born, who'd never once said, "I told you so," even though she'd warned me about marrying into Roman's world. I typed back, "It was Roman. He says he lied about everything. Says he left to protect me." The response came immediately. "What? I'm coming over." "No, Polina's asleep. Tomorrow. But Elisa, be careful. People don't change that much." I set down the phone. Tatiana was right to be cautious. Roman had been involved in things I'd never fully understood during our marriage. Business deals that happened at odd hours. Associates who made me uncomfortable. Money that flowed from sources he wouldn't explain. I'd been young and in love and willing to overlook the warning signs. I wasn't young anymore, and I had more than myself to protect now. The next morning, Christmas Day, Polina woke me early, bouncing on my bed with the kind of energy only children possessed at dawn. Mama, it's Christmas. Can we open presents?" I groaned, checking the clock. 6:15. "Give me 15 minutes to make coffee, then yes." She raced to the living room while I stumbled to the kitchen, my head fuzzy from too little sleep. I'd lain awake until nearly 3, wrestling with memories and possibilities and fears. Coffee made, I joined Polina by the tree. We'd kept Christmas simple this year. A few books, some art supplies, a new winter coat she'd needed anyway. She tore into each package with delight, exclaiming over every gift as if it were a treasure. "This is the best Christmas ever," she announced, hugging a sketchbook to her chest. "Better than last year when we went ice skating." "Different best," she grinned. "Last year was adventure best. This year is cozy best." My daughter, the philosopher. We spent the morning making breakfast together, then settled in to read our new books. Peaceful. Normal. Everything I'd worked so hard to build. At noon, my phone rang. Unknown number. I stared at it, my heart rate climbing. It could be anyone. A wrong number. A telemarketer on Christmas Day. But I knew who it was. "Polina, I need to take this in my room. Keep reading, okay?" She nodded absently, already lost in her story. I closed my bedroom door before answering. "Hello?" "Elisa." Roman's voice, rougher than yesterday, as if he'd also spent the night awake. "I'm sorry to call. I know you said you needed time, but I couldn't. I had to know if you're all right." "I'm fine." The automatic response. "No, you're not. Neither am I." He paused. "I've been sitting in this inn room since last night trying to figure out what to say, and I keep coming back to the same thing. I'm sorry. For all of it. For leaving. For lying. For the years you spent believing I didn't love you. Sorry doesn't change what happened. I know, but it's true anyway." Another pause. "Will you tell me about her? About Polina? I don't expect anything else. Just tell me about my daughter." The possessive sent a flash of anger through me. "She's not your daughter," he corrected quickly. "I know. I have no rights here. But please, Elisa, even just a little." I sank onto my bed, staring at the closed door. Behind it, Polina was safe, happy, oblivious to the conversation reshaping her world. "She's smart," I heard myself say. "Scary smart sometimes. She reads constantly, anything she can get her hands on. And she plays piano. Started lessons when she was 5 and never wanted to stop." "Like you," his voice was soft, almost reverent. "She has your stubbornness. Once she decides something, there's no changing her mind." I found myself almost smiling. Last month, she decided the cafeteria should serve better food, so she organized a petition. Got half the school to sign it. Roman laughed, the sound startling me. I hadn't heard him laugh in so long. Did it work? They added a salad bar. I sobered. "Roman, I can't do this. I can't just chat with you about Polina like we're old friends catching up." "I know. I'm sorry. He broke off. "I've missed so much. 9 years of her life. Her first words, first steps, first day of school. All because I thought I was protecting you by staying away." "You were protecting us," I said quietly. "If what you said about the threats was true." It was true. Every word. His voice hardened. "The Volkov organization had photographs of you, Elisa. Plans. They were going to take you, hurt you, use you against me. The only way to save you was to make them believe you meant nothing." A chill ran down my spine. "The Volkovs. I remember that name. Your associate Kirill mentioned them once." "My former associate. Kirill's been retired for 5 years now, living quietly in the countryside." Roman's tone softened again. "The threats are gone, Elisa. Eliminated. I made sure of it before I even considered coming back." "And what does that mean? Eliminated?" Silence. Never mind. I didn't want to know. Couldn't handle knowing. "Roman, I need more time. This is too much, too fast." "Of course. I understand." He hesitated. "But Elisa, thank you for telling me about Polina last night. For not keeping that secret any longer." After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my bedroom, processing. Roman had eliminated threats. He'd spent 5 years making sure it was safe before returning. What did a man like Roman do to eliminate threats? I'd spent 10 years convincing myself I didn't know the full extent of his business, but I'd always known enough. Known that his money came from places regular businessmen didn't discuss. Known that his associates were dangerous men. Known that our comfortable life had been built on foundations I was afraid to examine. Maybe I'd been as much a coward as he'd accused himself of being. A knock on my door. "Mama? Are you okay in there?" I opened it to find Polina, concern creasing her small face. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just a work call." "On Christmas?" She raised an eyebrow. My gesture, learned from watching me. "Must be important." It was. I pulled her into a hug. "Want to make Christmas cookies?" We spent the afternoon in the kitchen, rolling dough and cutting shapes, decorating with colored icing. Polina chattered about her friends, her plans for winter break, the new book series she wanted to start. Normal. Safe. Mine. But in the back of my mind, Roman's words echoed. I have a daughter. I've missed 9 years of her life. And beneath my anger, beneath my fear, a treacherous thought kept surfacing. Polina deserved to know her father, even if I could never forgive him for leaving, even if I could never trust him again. My daughter deserved the truth. That evening, after Polina was in bed, I pulled out my laptop. I'd avoided searching for Roman's name online for years, not wanting to know what he'd become. Now I needed to understand who I was potentially inviting back into our lives. The search results were surprisingly sparse. A few mentions of business deals from years ago. An obituary for his father from 15 years back. Nothing recent. It was as if he'd deliberately erased his digital footprint. I tried searching for Volkov Organization instead. The results were more illuminating and far more frightening. News articles about arrests, investigations, a trial 5 years ago that had resulted in multiple convictions. The organization had been dismantled. Had Roman been part of that? Had he helped destroy the people who'd threatened me? My phone buzzed. Another text from Tatiana. Serious question. Do you still love him? I stared at the message for a long time before typing. I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. Then figure it out before you let him meet Polina. She deserves clarity, not confusion. She was right. Of course she was right. But how was I supposed to find clarity in this mess of old love, fresh hurt, protective lies, and impossible truths? I looked at Roman's card again, still sitting on the kitchen table where I'd left it. One phone call could change everything, or one phone call could keep everything the same. The choice, terrifyingly, was entirely mine. 3 days passed before I called him. 3 days of Polina asking innocent questions about the old friend at church, of Tatiana dropping by with pointed looks and gentle warnings, of me lying awake each night weighing impossible choices. On the third night, I stood at my bedroom window watching snow fall over the sleeping town. Polina was asleep, the apartment quiet except for the ancient radiator's familiar hiss. I picked up my phone before I could overthink it further. Roman answered on the first ring. Alisa. We need to talk. Really talk. Not on the phone. I kept my voice low, mindful of Polina's room just down the hall. Tomorrow after I drop Polina at school, the cafe on Main Street, 9 o'clock. I'll be there. Relief flooded his voice. Thank you. I hung up before he could say more, before I could change my mind. The next morning, I went through our routine on autopilot. Breakfast, dressing Polina for school, walking her 3 blocks to the elementary building where I taught music twice a week. She chattered about the winter concert coming up, about wanting to play a solo piece. Can I do the Chopin Nocturne? The one you play sometimes when you think I'm asleep? I glanced down at her. You hear that? You play it when you're sad. She said it matter-of-factly, without judgment. It makes you feel better, but it also makes you cry sometimes. I can hear from my room. 9 years old and she saw everything. I squeezed her hand. We can work on the Chopin. It's challenging, but I think you're ready. Because I'm stubborn like my father. She asked it casually, but I caught the calculation in her eyes. I stopped walking. Polina, what? You said the man at church was an old friend. But you also said I got my stubbornness from my father. She looked up at me, those gray eyes unnervingly direct. Was he my father? Is that why you looked scared? My heart hammered. I'd underestimated her, assumed she'd accepted my vague explanations. Sweetheart, this isn't the time. You always say that. Her voice remained calm, but I heard the hurt beneath. You say we'll talk about it later, but later never comes. I'm not a baby anymore, Mama. I can handle the truth. We'd reached the school gates. Other children streamed past us, calling greetings to Polina. She waved absently, waiting for my answer. Yes, I said finally. That was your father. But it's complicated, and I really promise, we'll talk about it soon, after I understand it better myself. She studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. Okay. But soon, Mama. Not your usual someday soon. I watched her run to join her friends, my chest tight. How had my little girl become so perceptive? And how was I supposed to protect her from this when she could see right through my defenses? The cafe on Main Street was nearly empty at 9 on a weekday morning. Roman sat in the back corner, an untouched coffee in front of him. He stood when I entered, a gesture of respect that felt foreign after everything between us. I ordered tea at the counter. The waitress, young Sonia from my music class, smiled knowingly, then joined him at the table. Thank you for coming, Roman said quietly. I didn't do it for you. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug Sonia brought over. Polina asked me this morning if you were her father. She's too smart for her own good. Something crossed his face. Pride mixed with regret. What did you tell her? The truth. That you are her father, but it's complicated. I met his eyes. Which is why we need to talk. If I'm going to let you into her life, I need to understand what that means. All of it. He nodded slowly. What do you want to know? Everything. Start with the Volkovs. You said they threatened me. How? When? Roman looked down at his coffee. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. It started about a year before I left. There was a territorial dispute. The Volkovs wanted access to shipping routes we controlled. When I refused to negotiate, they began looking for leverage. And they found me. They found us, our marriage. He looked up, his gray eyes dark with old fury. Kirill brought me photographs, you leaving the music school, shopping at the market, having coffee with Tatiana. They'd been following you for weeks, documenting your routine. A chill ran through me despite the warm cafe. You never told me. I increased security without explaining why. Had men watching you from a distance. But the Volkovs were patient. They waited until I thought I'd handled it. Then they sent a message. His jaw tightened. They sent me your wedding ring, the one I'd given you. Somehow they'd gotten into our home, taken it from your jewelry box, and returned it to me with a note. What did the note say? Next time we'll take more than jewelry. And his hands clenched on the table. That's when I knew I had to get you out. Away from me. Away from that world entirely. But they were watching. If I just sent you away, they'd know it was to protect you. They'd follow. So you made me hate you. The pieces fell into place. You made it look like you were discarding me. I told you things I knew would hurt you most. That I'd never loved you. That our marriage was a mistake. That you were holding me back. His voice roughened. I watched your face break, Elisa. I watched you try not to cry, try to keep your dignity while I shredded everything between us. And I couldn't explain, couldn't comfort you, couldn't do anything except keep lying until you believed it. I remembered that day, the cold precision of his words, the way he'd looked at me like a stranger. I'd thought my heart was breaking then. Now I understood his had been breaking too. "The divorce papers," I said. "You never signed them. Because we were never really divorced. Not in my heart." He met my eyes. "I needed them to believe we were done, but I couldn't make it legal, couldn't make it permanent." "That's not how it works, Roman. You don't get to keep one foot in the door while you burn everything else down." I know it's not fair, but I'm trying to explain." "I understand the explanation," I interrupted. "What I don't understand is why you're back now. You said the threats are eliminated. What does that mean? Did you kill them?" The blunt question hung between us. Roman didn't flinch. "The Volkov organization was dismantled 5 years ago through a combination of law enforcement action and internal collapse. Several key members are in prison. Others are dead, though not by my hand directly." He paused. "I provided evidence to federal investigators. Testimony. I helped them build their case. You turned informant. I hadn't expected that. I did what was necessary to ensure you'd be safe, that I could come home eventually." His voice dropped. "I spent 5 years making sure every threat was neutralized, every connection severed. Then I spent another 5 years convincing myself I had no right to come back, that you'd built a better life without me." "Then why did you come back?" "Because I'm selfish." The admission was raw. "Because I couldn't stand another year without seeing you, without knowing if you were happy. I told myself I'd just look, just confirm you were all right, then leave again. But when I walked into that church and saw you..." He broke off. "I couldn't leave. Not again." I sipped my tea, buying time to think. "You talk about what you needed, what you decided. But you never asked what I needed. You made all these choices for me, leaving to protect me, staying away to let me move on, coming back because you were lonely. Where was my choice in any of it?" "You're right. You're absolutely right." He ran a hand through his hair. "I treated you like something to be protected rather than a partner who deserved the truth. It's what I knew. My father raised me to think protection meant control. It took me years to understand how wrong that was. Years after you'd already destroyed our marriage." "Yes." The simple acknowledgement surprised me. I'd expected excuses, justifications. Instead, he just sat there accepting my anger as his due. "I need conditions," I said finally. "If you're going to meet Polina, if you're going to be part of her life, there have to be rules. Anything, whatever you want. First, honesty. No more protective lies. If something dangerous is happening, you tell me. I'm not a child to be shielded from reality." He nodded. "Agreed." Second, you don't get to make decisions about Polina without consulting me. Not where she goes to school, not what activities she does. Nothing. I've been her parent for 9 years. You don't get to walk in and take over. Of course, you're her mother. You know what's best for her. Third, you have to understand that she may not want a relationship with you. She may be angry or confused or scared. If she decides she doesn't want you in her life, you accept that, and you don't pressure her. This one made him flinch, but he nodded. If that's what she wants, I'll respect it. And fourth, I paused, gathering courage. You have to tell me the complete truth about what you did. Not vague references to business or eliminating threats. I need to know exactly what kind of man you are now, what you're capable of, so I can decide if I want that around my daughter. The silence stretched. Roman looked out the window at the snow-covered street, his expression unreadable. I was born into a world you barely glimpsed during our marriage, he said finally. My father controlled shipping, imports, various enterprises that operated in gray areas of the law. I inherited that world at 25 when he died. For years, I told myself I was different from him, that I could clean up the business, make it legitimate. But you couldn't. The infrastructure was too deep, too many people dependent on it, too many connections that couldn't be untangled without destroying everything. He looked back at me. I'm not proud of what I did during those years, Elisa. I bent laws. I made deals with dangerous people. I used intimidation and leverage to protect our interests. Did you hurt people? Not directly. I never killed anyone. Never ordered anyone killed. But I profited from a system that did hurt people. His voice was steady, unflinching. When the Volkovs threatened you, I realized I couldn't keep living in both worlds. Couldn't be your husband and also be what my father's empire required. So I chose you. I became an informant, helped dismantle the very organization I'd inherited, and spent the last decade trying to build something clean. What do you do now? I own a small publishing house. We print books, classics, poetry, local authors. It makes enough to live on, nothing more. All the money from before, I gave it away. Anonymously funded schools, hospitals, programs for communities my family's business had harmed. He met my eyes. I know that doesn't erase what was done, but I'm trying to be someone different, someone who might deserve a chance to know his daughter. I studied him across the table. This wasn't the confident man I'd married, certain of his power and place. This was someone who'd been broken down and rebuilt into something quieter, humbler. A publishing house, I repeated. Where? I've been moving around, no permanent home, I thought. He hesitated. I thought if you agreed to let me see Polina, I might settle here. Open a bookshop in town. Be nearby, but not intrusive. You're planning to stay? To move back here permanently? Only if you allow it. If my presence would hurt you or Polina, I'll see her somewhere else. I'll commute. Whatever works for you. I wanted to say no. Wanted to tell him he'd given up the right to live in our town when he'd walked away. But I thought of Polina's questions about her father, the way she studied children with their dads at school events, the careful neutrality she maintained when other kids talked about their families. There's an empty storefront on Oak Street, I heard myself say, next to the antique shop. It's been vacant for years, but it has good bones. Would work well for a bookshop. Hope flickered in his eyes. I mean, I'll think about it. All of it. I stood, gathering my coat. I need to talk to Polina. Explain things properly before she meets you. That could take time. How much time? He stood as well, careful not to crowd me. I don't know. Weeks, maybe. I won't rush this just because you're impatient. I understand. Whatever she needs. He paused. Elisa, I know I don't deserve your trust, but thank you for considering this, for giving me any chance at all. I looked at him, really looked at him for the first time since Christmas Eve. The scars, the silver in his hair, the weariness in his eyes. He'd paid a price for his choices too. Maybe not the same price I'd paid, but a price nonetheless. I'm not doing this for you, I said quietly. I'm doing it for Polina. She deserves to know her father, even if I can never forgive you for leaving us. That's all I'm asking. His voice was rough. A chance to know my daughter, to try to earn back even a fraction of what I threw away. I left him there, walked out into the cold December morning. My phone buzzed, a text from the school secretary saying Polina had forgotten her music folder. Could I bring it by? I smiled despite everything. My daughter, so brilliant, but so scattered when it came to practical things, so much like Roman in that way. That night, after Polina was in bed, I sat at my kitchen table with a blank notebook and began writing. A timeline of events, questions to ask, ways to explain complicated truths to a 9-year-old without crushing her. Your father loved us but left to keep us safe. Your father is a good man who did bad things. Your father wants to know you but won't force his way into your life. How did I communicate all of that without confusing her? Without making her feel responsible for adult decisions and complicated histories? My phone rang. Tatiana. So, she asked without preamble, how did it go with Roman? I told her everything. The Volkovs, the protective lies, his transformation over the past decade. She listened in silence, only occasionally making small sounds of acknowledgement. Elisa, she said when I finished, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with yourself when you answer. Okay. Do you still love him? I opened my mouth to say no. The word wouldn't come. I don't know, I admitted finally. I loved who he was. I hate what he did. But this person he is now, I don't know him well enough to love or hate him. Then maybe that's where you start, Tatiana said gently, not trying to reconcile the past, but getting to know who he is now, for Polina's sake. After we hung up, I returned to my notebook, added a new section. Things I need to know about Roman now. The list grew longer than I expected. His daily routine, his beliefs, his plans for the future, whether he still took his coffee black or had developed a taste for sugar, whether he still hummed unconsciously when he read, whether the small intimacies of marriage had survived the decade apart. I caught myself and crossed out the last few items. Those weren't things I needed to know. Those were things I wanted to know, and that distinction mattered. Outside my window, snow continued to fall. Somewhere across town, Roman was probably lying awake too, thinking about the daughter he'd never met and the wife, ex-wife, who held all his hopes in her cautious hands. I looked at Polina's school photo on the refrigerator. Her gap-toothed grin, her wild hair escaping from braids, her eyes, Roman's eyes, bright with laughter. Your father wants to meet you, I whispered to the photo. And I think maybe I'm going to let him. The decision, once made, settled into my bones with a finality that felt both terrifying and inevitable. Tomorrow I would start the conversation with Polina. Tomorrow I would begin the careful work of rebuilding what Roman had torn apart. But tonight, I let myself feel the weight of it all. The anger and hurt, yes, but also the smallest, most treacherous spark of hope. I waited until Saturday morning to talk to Polina. She was in a good mood. Winter break had started, and she'd slept in until almost 9, a rare luxury. We made pancakes together, her standing on the step stool to reach the griddle while I supervised. Can we go ice skating today? She asked, expertly flipping a pancake. Anya's mom said they're opening the rink in the park. Maybe later. First, I need to talk to you about something important. She glanced at me, reading the seriousness in my tone. About my father. Not a question. I should have known she'd been waiting for this conversation since Christmas Eve. Yes. About your father. I turned off the stove, moved the pancakes to plates. Let's sit down. We settled at the kitchen table, pancakes between us. Polina poured syrup with careful concentration, but I could feel her attention focused entirely on me. You know I've always told you that your father and I separated before you were born, I began. She nodded, cutting her pancakes into precise squares the way she always did. What I didn't tell you was why. I didn't tell you because I didn't understand it myself until very recently. I took a breath. Your father left because he was trying to protect us from dangerous people. He thought the only way to keep us safe was to make those people believe we didn't matter to him anymore. Polina set down her fork. So he lied? About not loving us? About not loving me. He didn't know about you yet. The old pain flickered. I found out I was pregnant after he'd already gone. Why didn't you tell him? Because he'd said such hurtful things when he left, I thought he really didn't want me. Didn't want a family. I was angry and scared, and I reached across the table, took her small hand in mine. I was wrong. I should have told him. But I was trying to protect you in my own way. She absorbed this, her gray eyes thoughtful. So you both lied to protect people. That seems like a bad pattern. I almost laughed at her directness. You're absolutely right. It is a bad pattern. Is he still dangerous? The dangerous people, I mean. No. Your father spent years making sure they couldn't hurt anyone anymore. That's why he came back, because it's finally safe. And he wants to meet me. Again, not a question. Very much, but only if you want to meet him. I squeezed her hand. This is your choice, Polina. Not mine, not his. If you need time to think about it, or if you decide you're not ready, that's completely okay. She pulled her hand back, picked up her fork again. For several minutes she ate in silence while I watched, trying not to project my own anxieties onto her decision. What's he like? She asked finally. I mean, I know I look like him. But what's his personality? I thought about how to answer honestly without influencing her. He's very intelligent. He likes books. He owns a publishing house now. I paused, searching for the right words. He's quieter than he used to be, more careful with his words. He's made mistakes, big ones, but he's trying to be better. Does he play piano? The question surprised me. No, he plays chess though. Or at least he used to. She ate another bite. What if I meet him and I don't like him? Then you don't have to see him again. Or you can see him just sometimes if you want. This isn't all or nothing, sweetheart. We can figure it out as we go. And you? Do you like him? I hadn't expected that question. I'm still figuring that out. He hurt me very badly when he left, even if he had good reasons. That doesn't just go away because I understand why he did it. Polina nodded slowly. Anya's parents are divorced. She says it's better when they're honest about not liking each other than when they pretend. That's very wise of Anya. She's almost 10. She knows things. Polina finished her last bite of pancake, then looked directly at me. I want to meet him, but not alone. You have to be there too. Relief and anxiety warred in my chest. Of course I'll be there. We can meet somewhere neutral, maybe the library or the park. The bookshop. Her decision was immediate. You said there's an empty store on Oak Street. Can he show me that? Can he tell me about books and what he wants to do with the space? I stared at my daughter, awed once again by her wisdom. She'd found a perfect middle ground, meeting her father in the context of his work, with a clear purpose for the conversation, somewhere that wasn't emotionally loaded for any of us. I'll ask him, I promised. When would you want to do this? Today. She stood, gathering our plates. Before I get too nervous and change my mind. My heart hammered. Today? Polina, that's very fast. Mama, you always tell me that when something is hard, it's better to do it quickly, like taking off a bandage. She rinsed her plate in the sink. If I wait, I'll just worry. Can you call him? I pulled out my phone with shaking hands. Roman answered immediately, as if he'd been waiting by the phone. Elisa? Polina wants to meet you. Today, if you're available. Silence. Then his voice, rough with emotion. Today? Yes, absolutely. Where? When? The empty storefront on Oak Street. The one I mentioned. Can you meet us there at 2 o'clock? I'll be there. Elisa, Thank you. Thank you for this. Don't thank me yet. This is Polina's choice, and she's reserving the right to change her mind at any time. Of course. Whatever she needs. After I hung up, Polina appeared at my elbow. What should I wear? Whatever makes you comfortable. My blue dress, the one with the pockets. She was already heading to her room, in case I need to put my hands somewhere. I watched her go, marveling at her self-awareness. 9 years old, and she understood her own nervous habits well enough to plan for them. The morning crawled by. Polina alternated between excited chatter about what questions she wanted to ask Roman and quiet moments where she retreated into her own thoughts. I tried to remain calm, but my own anxiety kept spiking. At 1:30, we bundled into our winter coats and walked to Oak Street. The storefront was indeed empty. I'd checked the owner's name in the town records and confirmed it was available. Large windows looked out onto the street, and through them, I could see dusty hardwood floors and built-in shelving along the walls. Roman was already there, standing outside the door. He wore dark jeans and a black sweater under his coat, more casual than I'd seen him at the church. When he spotted us approaching, he went very still. Polina's hand found mine. I felt her tension through her small fingers. "It's okay," I murmured. "We can turn around right now if you want." "No," her voice was steady, despite her grip on my hand. "I want to do this." We stopped a few feet from Roman. He looked at Polina with such naked longing that I had to look away. "Hello," he said softly. "You must be Polina." "I am." She lifted her chin. "You're my father." "I am." He crouched down to be at her eye level. "I'm very happy to meet you." "Are you?" The challenge in her voice was pure steel. "Because Mama says you didn't know about me when you left. So maybe you wouldn't have been happy if you'd known." I started to intervene. This was too harsh for a first meeting, but Roman held up a gentle hand. "That's a fair question," he said, his gaze never leaving Polina's face. "And I can't say for certain what I would have done if I'd known. But I can tell you this. Discovering you exist has been the greatest gift of my life. I only wish I'd known sooner." "Why did you leave my mama?" "To protect her from people who wanted to hurt her because of me." His voice remained steady. "It was the wrong choice. I should have found another way. But I was scared and stupid, and I made her very sad." Polina considered this. "Mama says you're sorry. I am. More than I can ever express. Sorry doesn't fix things." "No, it doesn't." Roman's respect for her was evident in his tone. "But it's where we start. And then we try to do better." She studied him for a long moment, those gray eyes, so like his, assessing every detail. "You have a scar on your forehead." His hand moved unconsciously to the thin white line. "I do, from a long time ago." "Does it hurt?" "Not anymore. Mama has a scar on her hand from when she was teaching me to cook and I grabbed the hot pan." Polina held up my hand to show him the small mark on my palm. "She says scars are just proof we survived something. Your mother is very wise." "I know." Polina released my hand, straightened her shoulders. "Can we see the bookshop now?" Roman stood, pulling keys from his pocket. "I took the liberty of getting access from the owner. I hope that's all right." He unlocked the door, and we stepped into the dusty space. It was larger than it appeared from outside. 2 rooms connected by an archway, with the built-in shelving I'd noticed, and a small office area in back. "What would you do with it?" Polina asked, moving to examine the shelves. "Fill it with books, of course." Roman followed at a respectful distance. "All kinds, new releases, classics, local authors, maybe a children's section in this corner, with comfortable chairs for reading." "And a music section?" She glanced back at him. "Mama teaches music. Books about composers and theory and stuff." "Absolutely. A whole wall for music books." He pointed to the space. "Maybe even room for sheet music." Polina walked the perimeter of the room, her fingers trailing over dusty surfaces. I hung back, watching the 2 of them together for the first time. The resemblance was startling, Not just the coloring, but the way they moved, the tilt of their heads when thinking. "If you open this bookshop," Polina said, stopping in front of the largest window, "would you live here, in this town?" "I'd like to. If that's all right with you and your mother." "Why does it matter if it's all right with me?" Roman moved to stand beside her, both of them looking out at the snowy street. "Because this is your town, your home. I don't want to make you uncomfortable by being somewhere you don't want me." "That's nice of you." She turned to face him. "But also kind of silly. You're my father. Don't I have to get used to you being around eventually?" He smiled, a real smile that transformed his face. "I suppose that's true, and Mama needs someone to talk to about grown-up things. Tatiana is nice, but she talks too much about her cats." I couldn't help laughing. Polina shot me a look that said she was being perfectly serious. "I like Tatiana's cats," I protested. "You're polite about Tatiana's cats. There's a difference." Polina returned her attention to Roman. "Do you like cats?" "I'm more of a dog person, actually." "Me too." Her face lit up. "Mama says we can't have a dog because our apartment is too small, but maybe when I'm older." "Maybe," I interjected. "We should focus on the current situation before making plans for future pets." They both turned to look at me, identical expressions of mild exasperation that made my chest tight. "Right," Polina said. "Current situation." She faced Roman squarely. "Here's what I think. You can open the bookshop, you can live in town, but you have to have dinner with us once a week so I can get to know you. And you can't buy me lots of presents to make up for not being there before, because that's just weird." Roman's lips twitched. "Those terms are acceptable. And you have to be nice to Mama. Even when you're talking about boring adult stuff, you can't make her sad." "I'll do my very best not to." "Okay then." She held out her hand. "Deal?" He shook it solemnly. "Deal." I watched them, my heart in my throat. This wasn't how I'd imagined our first meeting going. I'd expected tears, or anger, or overwhelming emotion. Instead, my practical daughter had negotiated terms like a tiny lawyer and apparently decided her father was acceptable. "Can we get hot chocolate now?" Polina asked. "All this adult conversation is making me thirsty." We walked to the cafe on Main Street, Polina between us. She chattered about school, about her friends, about the book she was reading. Roman listened with complete attention, asking questions that showed he was really hearing her. At the cafe, Sonia brought us 3 hot chocolates without being asked, her eyes wide with curiosity at seeing Roman with us. The town gossip would be active tonight. "I have a question," Polina announced, stirring her chocolate. "A big one." "All right," Roman said carefully. "If you and Mama were married before, and you never actually got divorced," she paused, "does that mean you're still married?" I choked on my chocolate. Roman's eyes met mine over Polina's head. "That's complicated," I managed. "Legally, yes," Roman said quietly. "We're still married, but your mother has every right to change that if she wants to." "Do you want to?" Polina asked me. That's not something we need to decide right now. But eventually," she was relentless. "Because if you're married, that means we're all a family, sort of, even if we don't live together." "Families come in all shapes," I said carefully. "Living together or apart doesn't change whether people are family." "I know that." Polina rolled her eyes. "Anya's dad lives in another city and they're still family. But he and Anya's mom aren't married anymore. You and," she gestured to Roman, "and my father are still married. That's different." Roman cleared his throat. "What your mother means is that marriage is about more than legal papers. It's about whether 2 people want to build a life together. Your mother and I. We need time to figure out what we want." Okay. Polina accepted this with a shrug. But you should figure it out kind of soon. It's weird not knowing. After hot chocolate, we walked Polina back to our apartment. At the door, she turned to Roman. Same time next Saturday? For dinner? I'll be there. He crouched down again. Thank you for giving me a chance, Polina. It means everything to me. She surprised us both by stepping forward and hugging him. Brief and a bit awkward, but genuine. You seem nice. Don't mess it up. Then she was gone, disappearing into our apartment with a wave. I stood in the doorway with Roman, suddenly unsure what to say. She's extraordinary, he said softly. You've done an incredible job raising her. She raises herself half the time. She's always been wise beyond her years. She has your heart. He met my eyes, and apparently my tendency to speak too directly. I almost smiled. About what she said. The marriage thing. I know, it's complicated. We don't need to discuss it now. He stepped back, giving me space. I meant what I said to her. We need time to figure out what we both want. And what do you want, Roman? The question escaped before I could stop it. He looked at me for a long moment. I want what I threw away 10 years ago, but I know I don't deserve it. So what I'll take is whatever you're willing to give, even if that's just Saturday dinners and polite co-parenting. That's all it can be right now. I understand. He turned to leave, then paused. Elisa, she's perfect. Thank you for her, for keeping her safe all these years. After he left, I went inside to find Polina in her room, already engrossed in a book. So? I sat on the edge of her bed. What did you think? He's sad. She didn't look up from her book. Really, really sad. But he's trying not to show it. You noticed that? It's obvious. She turned a page. He looks at you the way Prince Charming looks at Cinderella in my storybook, like she's the most important thing in the world. My heart squeezed. Polina, I'm just saying what I saw. She finally looked up. Are you still in love with him? Where did you learn to ask questions like that? Books, are you? I thought about lying, about deflecting, but she deserved better. I don't know. Part of me will probably always love who he was, but I don't know if I can love who he is now. Why not? Because love requires trust, and trust requires time. Your father and I, we have a lot of hurt between us. But you're going to try. To figure it out, I mean. Do you want me to? She shrugged. I want you to be happy. You're always taking care of me and working and being responsible. You should have someone to make you laugh. Out of the mouths of babes. That night, after Polina was asleep, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and Roman's card. On impulse, I sent him a text. Thank you for being so good with her today. It meant a lot. His response came immediately. Thank you for letting me meet her. I'll see you Saturday. I stared at the message, then added, the bookshop is a good idea. Oak Street could use more local businesses. Does this mean I have your permission to lease it? I typed and deleted several responses before settling on, yes, but only if you promise to have a proper children's section. Polina will inspect it. Wouldn't dream of opening without her approval. I smiled despite myself, then set down the phone before I could continue the conversation. This was already more than I'd planned to give him. But maybe Polina was right. Maybe it was time to stop protecting myself from possibility and start figuring out what I actually wanted. The question was, did I have the courage to find out? The first Saturday dinner was awkward. Roman arrived exactly on time with a bottle of wine for me and a carefully chosen book for Polina, a collection of fairy tales from around the world, nothing too expensive or showy. She accepted it with solemn pleasure and immediately retreated to the couch to examine it while I finished cooking. Can I help? Roman stood in my small kitchen, looking uncertain in a way I'd never seen him before. You can set the table. I pointed to the cabinet. Plates are there, silverware in that drawer. We moved around each other carefully, avoiding accidental contact. The kitchen that felt spacious when just Polina and I cooked together suddenly seemed impossibly small with Roman's presence filling it. You still make the mushroom stroganoff, he observed, watching me stir. It's Polina's favorite. She asks for it every week. I didn't mention that I'd learned to make it for him during our marriage, that it had been his favorite first. Dinner conversation was stilted at first. Polina carried most of it, telling Roman about her school, her friends, the winter concert where she'd be playing a solo piece. He listened with complete attention, asking questions that showed he was genuinely interested, not just being polite. Mama's teaching me the Chopin Nocturne, Polina said, scooping up stroganoff. It's really hard, but she says I'm ready. The E-flat major? Roman asked. I looked up, surprised. You remember the opus numbers? I remember you playing it late at night when you couldn't sleep. His eyes met mine briefly before returning to Polina. It's beautiful. I'd love to hear you play it when you're ready. Maybe in a few weeks. I'm still working on the middle section. Polina wiped her mouth. Do you play any instruments? No, but I appreciate music. Your mother tried to teach me piano once, but I was hopeless. He has no sense of rhythm, I added, then caught myself. This easy familiarity, this sharing of old memories, it was dangerous. But Polina beamed. That's okay. Not everyone has to play. Mama says the world needs listeners too. After dinner, Polina demonstrated her current progress on the nocturne. Roman sat on the couch, listening with an expression of wonder as her small fingers found their way through Chopin's delicate phrases. She stumbled over the difficult runs, but her musicality was already evident. When she finished, Roman applauded. That's remarkable, Polina. Truly. I make a lot of mistakes still. All musicians make mistakes. What matters is the feeling you put into it. He glanced at me. Your mother taught me that. Had I? I didn't remember saying that to him, but it sounded like something I would have said. The evening ended at 8, Polina's bedtime. Roman took the hint gracefully, thanking us for dinner and promising to see us next Saturday. At the door, Polina hugged him again, less awkward this time. You should bring your favorite book next week. I want to know what kind of books you like. I will. He looked at me over her head. Thank you, Elisa. For this. After he left, I helped Polina get ready for bed. She chattered about Roman, about the fairy tale book he'd brought, about how strange but nice it was to have a father. Do you think he'll keep coming? She asked as I tucked her in. He promised he would. I think he'll keep that promise. Good. She yawned. I like him. He's quieter than I expected fathers to be. What did you expect? Louder. Like Anya's dad or Mikhail's dad. They're always laughing and being silly. But I think quiet is okay too. It matches you better. I kissed her forehead. Sleep well, my wise girl. Mama? Her voice stopped me at the door. Are you happy he's here? The question deserved an honest answer. I'm happy for you, and I'm cautiously hopeful about the rest. She smiled, satisfied. That's good enough for now. The Saturday dinners became routine. Each week, Roman arrived with some small, thoughtful gift, never expensive, always carefully chosen. A blank journal for Polina when she mentioned wanting to write stories. A vintage book of Russian folk songs for me when I mentioned needing new material for my students. He remembered everything we said, paid attention to details. Polina blossomed under his attention. She asked him questions about his childhood, about what her grandmother had been like, about the publishing house he was setting up. Roman answered everything honestly, even the difficult questions. Why did you do bad things? She asked one evening in mid-January, with her characteristic directness. Roman didn't flinch. Because I was raised in a world where those things seemed normal, where I was taught that power and control mattered more than kindness or honesty. It took losing everything important to me to realize how wrong that was. Do you still think about doing bad things? Sometimes. Old habits are hard to break, but I have better reasons to be good now. He looked at her. I have you, and your mother. I don't want to disappoint either of you. Good, Polina said simply, and returned to her dinner. I watched these exchanges with a mixture of pride in my daughter and something more complicated toward Roman. He was patient with her questions, honest without being inappropriate, building a relationship based on mutual respect rather than obligation. In February, the bookshop began to take shape. Roman hired local contractors to refresh the space while preserving its historic character. He consulted Polina on the children's section. She accompanied him to the shop one Saturday and came home full of plans for reading nooks and themed displays. He's going to have a whole wall for music books, she told me excitedly. And he said when the shop opens, maybe you could do a piano recital there, for customers and students. Did he now? I tried to keep my voice neutral. He said lots of bookshops have events, and music would bring in more people. Plus it would show off the music section. She paused. I think he's trying to find ways to see you more. Not just me. Polina. It's obvious, Mama. The way he looks at you when you're not paying attention. The way he always asks about your day. The way he remembered you play the nocturne when you can't sleep. My 9-year-old daughter was too observant for her own good. Even if that's true, I said carefully, it doesn't mean anything will come of it. Your father and I have a complicated history. I know, but maybe you could have a less complicated future. That night, Roman texted me directly for the first time outside our Saturday arrangements. Polina mentioned you might consider doing a recital at the bookshop. No pressure, but I'd love to host something like that if you're interested. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Let me think about it. When are you planning to open? April, if renovations stay on schedule. So there's time. I set down the phone, my heart racing. A recital at his bookshop would mean collaboration, would mean us working together on something beyond co-parenting Polina. It would mean stepping closer to whatever was growing between us. Was I ready for that? The next Saturday, Roman arrived with his favorite book, as Polina had requested. A worn copy of Dostoevsky's The Brothers Karamazov, in Russian, with notes in the margins. I've read this at least 20 times, he told Polina, as she examined it carefully. Every time I find something new. What's it about? She turned the pages reverently, clearly understanding this was something precious to him. Brothers, family, faith, redemption. He paused. The question of whether people can change, or if we're trapped by who we've always been. And what do you think? Can people change? I have to believe they can. Otherwise, there's no hope for any of us. Polina handed the book back. You should keep reading it then. Until you're sure. That evening, after Polina was in bed, Roman lingered in the doorway. We'd fallen into this pattern, him staying a few minutes after she went to sleep, both of us pretending we needed to discuss co-parenting details. She's getting more comfortable with me, he observed. You're easy to be comfortable with. You listen to her, take her seriously. That matters to children. I paused. It matters to everyone, really. I'm trying to be the father she deserves, the man you both deserve. Roman, I know. I know you're not ready to talk about us, about what we were or what we might be. But I need you to know I'm not going anywhere. I'll wait as long as you need. The sincerity in his voice made my chest tight. What if I never stop needing time? Then I'll wait forever. He said it simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. You and Polina are worth waiting for. After he left, I found myself at the piano, My fingers found the Chopin Nocturne without conscious thought, the same piece I'd played late at night during our marriage when I couldn't sleep, the same piece he'd mentioned remembering. The melody wound through the quiet apartment, melancholy and sweet. I let my hands express what I couldn't say aloud, the confusion, the longing, the fear of letting myself hope again. When I finished, I sat in silence, hands resting on the keys. My phone buzzed, a text from Roman. I could hear you playing from the street, still beautiful, still you. He'd been standing outside, listening. The thought should have unsettled me. Instead, it felt like a promise that he would always be there, just close enough to hear my music, waiting for permission to come closer. In March, Tatiana cornered me at her apartment during our weekly tea. "So," she said, pouring chamomile into delicate cups, "are we going to talk about the elephant in the room?" "What elephant?" "Roman, who's been having weekly dinners with you and Polina for 3 months, who texts you about bookshop events, who's clearly still in love with you." She handed me a cup. "The question is, are you still in love with him?" I sipped the tea, burning my tongue. "It's not that simple. It never is. But Elisa, I see the way you smile when you talk about something he said. I see the way you've started wearing the earrings you loved during your marriage. I see you coming alive again. Or I'm being a fool. Again. Maybe." Tatiana's voice softened. "But maybe being a fool in love is better than being wise and lonely. Look at what he's doing. He's not just trying to win you back. He's building a life here, opening a business, being a father to Polina. Those aren't the actions of someone playing games. He destroyed me once, Tati. I'm not sure I can survive that again." "Then don't let him have all the power. Set boundaries. Make him prove himself. But don't shut him out completely just because you're scared." Her words stayed with me through the week. When Saturday came, I made a decision. After dinner, after Polina went to bed, I asked Roman to stay. "I've been thinking about the recital," I said as we sat at my small kitchen table. "I'll do it, on one condition." Hope flared in his eyes. "Anything." "We go slowly, with everything. The recital is professional, me supporting your business and you supporting my music. It doesn't mean we're together. It doesn't mean I've forgiven everything." "I understand. And you need to be patient. With me, with this whole situation. I spent 10 years believing you didn't love me. You can't erase that overnight with Saturday dinners and thoughtful gifts." "I know." He leaned forward. "Elisa, I'll take whatever you're willing to give. Friendship, co-parenting, professional collaboration. All of it is more than I deserve." "Stop saying that." My voice came out sharper than intended. "Stop acting like you don't deserve basic human kindness. Yes, you made terrible choices. But you're also trying to do better. That should count for something." Something shifted in his expression. "Does it count for something? With you?" I met his eyes across the table. "I'm agreeing to the recital, aren't I? That's a start." "It's more than a start. It's everything." He left shortly after, but not before squeezing my hand gently. The touch sent electricity through me, a reminder that my body remembered loving him even if my mind was still cautious. That night, I lay awake thinking about trust and risk and second chances, about whether love was something you fell into or something you chose, consciously and deliberately, despite fear. Outside my window, snow fell softly. Spring was coming, bringing with it Roman's bookshop opening, the recital, and decisions I'd been avoiding for months. Polina had asked if I was still in love with Roman. I'd said I didn't know. But lying in the dark, listening to my daughter's soft breathing from her room down the hall, I admitted the truth to myself. I'd never stopped loving him. I'd only learned to live with the pain of his absence. Now he was back, and the pain was transforming into something else. Something fragile and terrifying and full of possibility. The question wasn't whether I loved him. The question was whether I was brave enough to let myself love him again. The bookshop opened on a Saturday in mid-April, with spring finally breaking through winter's grip. Roman had named it The Silver Page, a reference, he told me privately, to the silver in his hair and the new page he was trying to write in his life. Polina and I arrived early to help with final preparations. She'd appointed herself the official inspector of the children's section, which Roman had designed exactly to her specifications. Reading nooks with cushions, shelves at child height, a small stage area for story times. "It's perfect," she declared, spinning in the center of the space. "Absolutely perfect." Roman watched her with undisguised joy. "Your approval means everything." The music section took up an entire wall, as promised. I ran my fingers along spines. Theory books, composer biographies, collections of sheet music. He'd even included several rare volumes I'd mentioned wanting months ago in passing conversation. "You remembered," I said softly. "I remember everything you tell me." He stood close enough that I could smell his cologne. "The recital is scheduled for the second Saturday in May. Does that still work for you?" "Yes. I've been practicing." I'd been doing more than practicing. I'd been pouring everything I couldn't say into music, letting Chopin and Rachmaninoff and Debussy express the complicated tangle of my emotions. "I can't wait to hear you play again. Really hear you. Not just stolen moments through windows." I turned to face him. "You've been doing that? Listening outside my apartment?" He had the grace to look embarrassed. "Sometimes, when I'm walking past. I don't linger. I know it's an invasion of privacy. But when I hear you playing, I can't help stopping for just a moment." I should have been angry. Instead, I felt something warm unfurl in my chest. "You're impossible. I'm in love with you." He said it simply, quietly, as if stating a fact. I never stopped, and I never will. But I know you're not ready to hear that yet. "Roman, I'm not asking for anything," he interrupted gently. "Just telling you the truth. Because we promised honesty, remember?" Polina's voice called from across the shop, saving me from having to respond. "Mama, come see the section on fairy tales from different countries." The grand opening was busy. Half the town turned out to support the new business. Roman moved through the crowd with quiet confidence, recommending books, chatting with customers, making everyone feel welcome. I watched him work, saw how he'd transformed himself from the man who'd commanded a criminal empire to someone who genuinely cared about connecting people with stories. "He's good at this," Tatiana observed, appearing at my elbow with a cup of the coffee Roman was serving. "Natural retailer. Who would have thought?" He always loved books. I just never saw him in a context where that could be his whole life. "And now?" She studied my face. "What do you see when you look at him now?" I watched Roman crouch down to talk to a small child about a picture book, his expression patient and kind. I see someone trying very hard to be better than he was. "Is it working? The trying?" Before I could answer, Polina bounded over. "Mama, Mrs. Volkov wants to know if you're taking new piano students. Can I tell her yes?" "You can tell her to call me next week to discuss." Polina ran off to relay the message, and Tatiana raised an eyebrow. "Your daughter is running a marketing campaign for you. She's determined that I should be happy and successful. Apparently that requires Roman's bookshop to succeed and my piano studio to expand. Smart girl. She knows that if you're both thriving, she'll have 2 stable parents instead of 1 stressed one." The opening continued late into the evening. By the time we closed the doors at 9, Polina was asleep on one of the reading nook cushions, curled around the fairy tale book Roman had given her months ago. "I'll carry her home," Roman offered. "It's on my way." I should have said no, should have maintained the careful distance I'd been preserving. But I was tired, and the evening had been long, and the sight of him gently lifting our daughter into his arms made my defenses crumble. We walked through quiet streets, Polina's head resting on Roman's shoulder. He carried her with practiced ease, as if he'd been doing it for years instead of months. "Thank you," he said as we walked, "for being here today, for supporting this. Polina wanted to be here. I came for her." "I know." He glanced at me. "But you stayed. You talked to customers about the music section, recommended books, helped Mrs. Volkov find something for her grandson. You didn't have to do any of that." He was right. I'd gotten swept up in the energy of it, had found myself genuinely enjoying the work of connecting people with books and music. At my apartment, Roman carried Polina directly to her bedroom. I pulled back her covers, and he laid her down gently, both of us working in silent synchronicity to remove her shoes and tuck her in. She stirred slightly. "Papa." The word was sleepy, unconscious. Roman froze, his hand still on the blanket. Tears glistened in his eyes. "Shh," I whispered to Polina. "Sleep now." She settled immediately, her breathing evening out. Roman stood there for a long moment, just watching her. In the living room, he turned to me, his voice rough. "She called me Papa." I heard. I never expected. He broke off, overwhelmed. "She's been calling you that when she talks about you to her friends." I didn't correct her because... I paused. "Because you are her papa, even if we're still figuring out what that means for all of us." He sat down heavily on the couch. "Elisa, I need to tell you something about the recital." Concern flickered through me. "What about it?" "I invited someone from before." He looked up at me. "Kirill, my former associate. He's been clean for 5 years, living quietly in the countryside like I mentioned. But he was at my wedding, and he knew you, and he asked if he could come to the recital, to see how you were doing." The name sent a chill through me. Kirill had been Roman's right hand during our marriage, efficient, loyal, and terrifying in his competence. "Why would you invite him without asking me first?" "I'm asking now. I should have asked sooner, but I was afraid you'd say no." He ran a hand through his hair. "Kirill has been my closest friend since childhood. He was there through everything, the bad years and the redemption. He wants to see that I've finally found my way back to you and Polina. And if I say no, then I'll uninvite him. Your comfort matters more than his curiosity." I thought about it, about how Roman had honored every boundary I'd set, had been patient and honest even when it cost him. He can come, but Roman, no more surprises. If you're going to bring pieces of your past into our present, I need warning. "Agreed, I promise." He stood. "I should go. It's late." At the door, he paused. "When she called me Papa, that's the best moment of my life. Better than anything I accomplished before, any success I had. That one word from our daughter." After he left, I checked on Polina. She was still deeply asleep, one hand tucked under her cheek. Our daughter, the child we'd made together, who was weaving us back into something that looked like a family. The weeks leading up to the recital passed in a blur of practice and preparation. Roman had arranged for a tuner to service the upright piano in the bookshop's event space. He'd sent out invitations, coordinated with local media, turned it into a genuine community event. "You don't have to do all this," I told him during one of our planning sessions. "I could have just played for a dozen people." You deserve an audience. Your talent deserves recognition." He looked at me intently. "For too long, you hid your light because you were just trying to survive. Let people see what you can do." The night of the recital, I arrived early to warm up. The bookshop had been transformed. Chairs arranged in neat rows, soft lighting creating an intimate atmosphere, the piano positioned perfectly for acoustics. Kirill arrived just as I was finishing my warm-up scales. He was older than I remembered, grayer, but with the same sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. "Alisa Sokolova." He used my married name deliberately. "You look well." "So do you, Kirill. Roman says you've retired." 5 years now. I grow vegetables and bore my wife with stories of the old days." He smiled slightly. "Though she insists the new days are far more interesting. Peace suits me better than I expected." "And Roman? Does peace suit him?" Kirill's expression grew serious. "He's a different man than the one you knew. The years of being an informant, of dismantling everything his father built, of living with what he'd done, it changed him fundamentally. He's found himself in books and in trying to make amends. And in trying to win me back? That too. Though I think he's realistic about his chances. He just wants to be near you and the child, even if that's all he ever gets." People began arriving. Students and their parents, town officials, curious community members. Polina sat in the front row between Roman and Tatiana, her face glowing with excitement. At exactly 7, Roman stood to introduce me. "Thank you all for coming to the Silver Pages' first community event. It's my privilege to introduce Alisa Sokolova, one of the finest musicians our town has ever produced. Please welcome her." The applause felt warm, genuine. I sat at the piano, my hands settling on the keys, and let everything else fall away. I played the Chopin Nocturne first, the one Polina was learning, the one I played late at night, the one Roman remembered from our marriage. Then Rachmaninoff's Prelude in C-sharp minor, dark and powerful. Then Debussy's Clair de Lune, dreamy and ethereal. For my final piece, I chose something I hadn't planned. Schumann's Träumerei, a simple, tender piece about dreaming, about hope, about the possibility of happiness after sorrow. As I played, my eyes found Roman's. He was watching me with such complete absorption, such naked love, that it took my breath away. This was how he'd looked at me during our wedding, during quiet mornings when we'd wake up tangled together, during the best moments of our marriage. The love had never died. It had just been buried under lies and distance and time. When I finished, the applause was thunderous. Polina jumped to her feet, clapping wildly. Roman stood too, his eyes bright with tears he didn't try to hide. People came up afterward to compliment me, to ask about lessons, to request future performances. Through it all, I was aware of Roman's presence, never intrusive but always there, supporting me without demanding anything in return. Finally, the crowd thinned. Kirill said his goodbyes. "Give him a chance, Alisa. He deserves that much, and so do you." And departed. Tatiana took Polina home to sleep over, giving me a significant look as she left. And then it was just Roman and me in the quiet bookshop, surrounded by stories waiting to be read. "That was beautiful," he said softly. "Even more beautiful than I remembered. I'm better than I was. 10 years of practice. You were always extraordinary." He moved closer. "But there was something different tonight. A lightness in your playing, like you've found peace." Maybe I have, or maybe I'm starting to. I took a breath. "Roman, I need to tell you something. About us." He went very still. "I'm listening. I've spent months being careful, protecting myself, keeping you at arm's length. And it's exhausting." The words came faster now. "I'm tired of being afraid. Tired of punishing you and myself for what happened a decade ago. Alisa, Let me finish. I stepped closer to him. I'm not saying I've forgiven everything. I'm not saying there won't be hard days where old hurts resurface. But I am saying that I want to try. Really try. Not just co-parenting or professional collaboration, but us. Together. Building something new. Hope blazed in his eyes. Are you sure? No. I'm terrified, but I'm also sure that life is short, and love is rare, and we have a daughter who wants her parents to be happy, together, if possible. He reached for my hands, holding them gently. I will spend every day for the rest of my life proving I'm worthy of this chance. I swear it. I don't need you to be perfect, Roman. I just need you to be honest, to be present, to choose us every day, even when it's hard. That's the easiest promise I've ever made. He leaned in slowly, giving me time to pull away. I didn't. Our lips met in a kiss that was both familiar and entirely new. The taste of coming home after a long journey, the feeling of finding something precious you'd thought was lost forever. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. I love you, he whispered. I never stopped. I never will. I love you too. The words felt like freedom. God help me, I never stopped either. We stood there in the quiet bookshop, holding each other, while outside spring bloomed into early summer and the world continued turning. 2 years later, on Christmas Eve, Roman and I stood in St. Nicholas Church once more. But this time, Polina stood between us, holding 2 candles, our ring bearer, though technically it should be ring bearer. This is weird but nice, she whispered, as Father Mikhailov began the ceremony. Getting married to someone you're already married to. We're renewing our vows, I whispered back, making new promises. Same thing, she said wisely. You're choosing each other again. That's what matters. She was right. The intervening years had been complicated. Learning to trust again, navigating old wounds, building new patterns. But we'd done it together, with honesty and patience and love. Roman had sold his publishing house and focused entirely on the silver page, which had become the heart of our small town's cultural life. I'd expanded my piano studio and performed regular recitals. Polina, now 11, had grown into a remarkable young musician and an even more remarkable human being. We'd bought a house together. Nothing grand, just a comfortable place with room for Polina's piano and Roman's ever-expanding book collection. A place that felt like home. Father Mikhailov spoke of marriage as a journey, of how love was both a feeling and a choice, of how the greatest gift we could give each other was our whole, imperfect selves. When it came time for vows, Roman took my hands in his. Elisa, 10 years ago I made you a promise, and then broke it spectacularly. Today I make you a different promise. I will never again choose protection over partnership. I will trust you with the truth, even when it's hard. I will choose us, every day, in every way. And I will love you and our extraordinary daughter, for as long as I draw breath. I squeezed his hands, tears streaming down my face. Roman, you taught me that love isn't just about the good times. It's about choosing each other through the hard times, too. Today I choose you, not the man you were, not the man you might become, but exactly who you are right now, flawed and trying and brave enough to come back. I will build this life with you, one honest day at a time. Father Mikhailov blessed our union, and we exchanged new rings, simple silver bands to replace the ornate gold ones from our first wedding. A new chapter, a new beginning. When he pronounced us husband and wife again, Polina cheered before we could even kiss, causing laughter to ripple through the church. The reception was small. Tatiana and her husband, Kirill and his wife, a handful of close friends and family. We held it at the Silver Page, surrounded by books and music and love. Polina gave a speech that had everyone in tears. My mama always told me that family isn't just about blood. It's about who shows up, who stays, who chooses you every day. My papa left once, but he came back. And more importantly, he keeps coming back. Every Saturday dinner, every recital, every ordinary Tuesday. That's the kind of father I want, and the kind of love my mama deserves. So I'm really glad they're finally figuring it out. Later, as the party wound down, Roman and I stood together looking at our daughter as she played piano for the remaining guests. The Chopin nocturne she'd finally mastered, played with feeling and technical skill. "We made that," Roman said softly. "That incredible human being. We did. And now we get to raise her together. Best second chance I could have ever asked for." He pulled me close. "Thank you, Elisa, for your courage, for giving us this. Thank you for coming back, for being patient, for loving us enough to wait." Outside the bookshop windows, snow began to fall, soft and silent, covering the town in white. Inside, we were warm, together, home. Polina finished her piece to enthusiastic applause, then turned to us with a grin. "Next year, can we have Christmas at our house? Our actual house with both of you there, like a normal family?" Roman and I exchanged a look. We'd been living together for 6 months, but Polina was right. It was time to make it official in every way. "Yes," I said. "Next year, we'll have Christmas at our house, all of us together." Finally, Polina sighed dramatically. "It only took you two like a million years to figure out you belong together." 11 years, technically, Roman corrected with a smile. "Same thing. Now can we cut the cake? I'm starving." As we gathered around the cake, a simple 2-tier creation from the local bakery, I looked at my family. My daughter, so wise and wonderful. My husband, who'd traveled through darkness to find his way back to light. And me, no longer just surviving, but truly living. We'd lost so much time, but what we'd gained, this hard-won understanding, this deeper love, this second chance, was worth every tear, every doubt, every moment of fear. Life had given us a gift, the opportunity to begin again, older and wiser, in the same place where we'd first promised forever. This time, forever felt possible. This time, we knew what we were promising. This time we were ready.